Hello and welcome to Newsroom. We're coming to you live from Islamabad, and I'm Sharmeen Ali. Recently, yesterday, the Chief of Army Staff, General Qamar Javed Bajwa, visited Kabul, and he had one-on-one meetings with President Ashraf Ghani and also with the Chairman of the High Council for Reconciliation of Afghanistan, Dr. Abdullah Abdullah. This was on Tuesday, and this was to discuss the ongoing peace process for Afghanistan and that it should be Afghan-owned and Afghan-led, and also refugees and their repatriation from Pakistan. Afghan refugees should also be how that whole mechanism is going to take place was also discussed. We'll be talking about that in our program, a very important development, and Pakistan's role in this peace process was also lauded by President Ashraf Ghani in this meeting. We will be having a word with officials in the Technology Development Fund initiative by the Higher Education Commission. This is a fund that was developed by the Higher Education Commission. It's an initiative in order to fund proposals for technology development by research scholars, which are going to impact the economy of Pakistan, and they will also be targeted towards solving current problems in Pakistan and issues that are going to have a good market value and that will be sellable and also provide much needed services to Pakistan as well. So we'll be talking about that from a representative from the Higher Education Commission. This is a very good initiative indeed. In recent developments all over the world, it's not just now limited to the United States. Protests over the death of George Floyd, his killing at the hands of a police officer, and his subsequent funeral yesterday. We saw his funeral was held in Houston yesterday, and his brother gave a eulogy that said that he is going to change the world, and unknowingly this is actually happening. A lot of changes are taking place. Particularly we are seeing that some of the states are reforming their police policies. 11 cities are considering and working on banning the use of chokeholds, and around the world we've also seen protests addressing similar issues. In England and Australia, for the indigenous people there were protests taking place, and also we saw the tearing down of statues of previous slave traders which have been around for a very long time, which were obviously very hurtful to the black community. So and also at the end we will show you a little video that will make you feel very happy of a little boy who is showing that persistent efforts definitely pay off, and you eventually get to do what you're trying to do, but that's a surprise we have at the end of the program. So to begin with, in our program, General Bajwa's visit to Afghanistan and its importance. For that, right now we have with us online Mr. Tariq Pirzada, who's the foreign affairs expert. Thank you for joining us online, sir. Okay, so we're going to have him with us online, and so to begin with, General Qamar Javed Bajwa had one-on-one meetings yesterday in Afghanistan with President Ashraf Ghani and the chairman of the High Council for National Reconciliation of Afghanistan, Dr. Abdullah Abdullah. And these are significant meetings taking place right now, because this is a critical point for the peace process at the moment. To discuss with us right now, we've got with us Mr. Tariq Pirzada. We're having some technical issue. He'll be with us in a second. The important things that are being discussed in these meetings: number one, the positive role of Pakistan in facilitating this peace process has been highlighted by President Ashraf Ghani, and also the importance of making sure that this is an Afghan-owned and Afghan-led process. A lot of positive developments have taken place where President Ashraf Ghani and his rival Dr. Abdullah Abdullah have reached an agreement of how to run the country, who is in charge, and what each of them and which role they are to play, and some positive developments with the Afghanistan government and the Taliban as well. Mr. Tariq Pirzada, do we have you with us online?
Yes.
Okay, thank you for joining us. This meeting yesterday between General Bajwa and President Ashraf Ghani and Dr. Abdullah yesterday in Afghanistan. Can you please discuss a little bit about the significance of this visit at this point in time?
Well, the significance of this meeting is enormous in the sense that this process that started about a year ago, a little more than a year ago, with the first call of President Trump to the Prime Minister of Pakistan, Mr. Imran Khan, and that was the thing that set into motion this peace process, which means, in a nutshell, the withdrawal of U.S. forces from Afghanistan. This is the ultimate goal, and also to be followed by the establishment of peace within Afghanistan through a settled and negotiated settlement between the Afghan and the Afghan parties, all the parties, including Afghan Taliban, the government of Afghanistan, and the other stakeholders. So this is the background against which this whole process that was being supervised by Mr. Zalmay Khalilzad, the U.S. negotiator who actually oversaw all these negotiations from Doha to Islamabad to Washington to Doha. So we have reached a point where the first and the most important thing that was supposed to have happened, most of that has already been accomplished. That is, out of roughly 5,000 Afghan prisoners, 3,000 have been released by the government of Afghanistan with some glitches and hitches. But this is how the whole process works when these things, start. Secondly,
Right.
now that this situation has moved to the next stage, Mr. Zalmay Khalilzad was in Islamabad just a couple of days ago. It was followed by the very important trip to which you may referred of General Bajwa to Kabul, which means that we are in the process of getting into the second phase, which is the intra-Afghan dialogue. And once the glitches are removed and the certain modalities are worked out, we will see that the only place on earth where peace is a subject of negotiation, that is Afghanistan. And Pakistan really has a lot of credit to take.
Tariq Saab, also now I'd like to ask you that topics about the issue about Afghan refugees also came up, and their repatriation in a dignified and time-bound manner. How do you expect that this might take place going forward? This is something that's been there for decades now. So how do we see this happening going forward? All right. We are having a bit of sound issues. We'll just have Tariq Pirzada back with us shortly. But in the meantime, the significant things that we were just talking about with our analyst here, who's a foreign affairs expert, is that it's a very essential time right now. It's a very positive time that we are expecting that in Kabul that there's going to be an intra-Afghan dialogue. Some crucial steps have taken place in the sense that the 3,000 out of 5,000 prisoners of the Taliban have been released by the Afghan government, and that is one of the crucial steps that was needed in order to have a ceasefire and for talks to resume. So there have been some good developments in that sense, and now other very important issues need to be discussed in this also, because the peace process in Afghanistan affects the entire region, and let me check now if we have Tariq Pirzada Sab, are you with us online again? Tariq Pirzada, are you able to hear me? Okay, so we're going to try and connect again. However, as we were saying earlier, that this is a very essential process that is going on right now. With the peace process, General Qamar Javed Bajwa visited Afghanistan yesterday and had a meeting with President Dr. Ashraf Ghani, and President Ashraf Ghani also expressed his appreciation for Pakistan's role in bringing about the peace process and helping to bring that about. Many factors were in play, many people played their roles, and we also saw that there have been frequent visits by Zalmay Khalilzad, who is a special representative for Afghanistan, his visits to Doha and to Kabul and to Pakistan to coordinate all of this. And it seems like something maybe moving forward as far as getting a resolution to this issue prior to United States troop withdrawal. We have an analyst with us online, Mr. Hassan Khan. He's a senior analyst. Thank you so much for joining us on our program.
Thank you very much, Shami.
Would you like to comment now about this visit of General Bajwa's to Afghanistan and his subsequent meeting with President Ashraf Ghani and Dr. Abdullah? Naturally, the peace process was discussed, which we were just talking about with our prior guests. Also, the repatriation of Afghan refugees from Pakistan back to Afghanistan, which has been a decades-long issue. Sir, this is to be, they agreed that it has to be done in a dignified and time-bound manner. How do you expect that this process would go forward?
I think first, this visit of General Bajwa, it's by itself a very crucial one. The reason is that it is the first Pakistani and Afghan leadership high-level interaction, I think, after years. When last time President Ghani visited, I think it was before Afghan election, and after Afghan election is the first time that a senior level Pakistani leader is visiting the Afghan capital. And he has I think, for 2 days, as a 2-day visit. Previously, we have seen that Pakistani leaders just go dash in Kabul and then come back. But this time, General Bajwa has stayed for a night there and have interaction with Dr. Abdullah, with other Afghan leadership, and particularly with Dr. Ashraf Ghani. So I see it is the breaking of an ice, and too much is happening on the Afghan front. Particularly the U.S. decision to leave Afghanistan as early as possible. In the agreement with Taliban, it was agreed that the U.S. forces will leave Afghanistan by May 2021. But now the U.S. has shrunk that date, and now they want to leave the country by November this year. So I think a big burden is definitely on Pakistan. And Pakistan is seemed to be a major stakeholder. You see that the U.S. interlocutors, especially its special representative for Afghanistan, Zalmay Khalilzad, has almost every month he is visiting Pakistan, and he is interacting with the Pakistan military leadership. The reason is that they believe that Pakistan has played a very positive role so far in resolving the Afghan conflict, and now in the second step, when Afghan will sit together and they will chart out the governance issues and the future of Afghanistan, particularly the peace. So Pakistan can't be left out, and Pakistan needs to be on the front desk. So that's the reason that, and one thing more additionally, and that is Afghan leadership have historically, they have a mistrust over the security leadership in Pakistan. So I think this interaction of General Bajwa with Dr. Ashraf Ghani, with Dr. Abdullah and other cabinet members will definitely, I think, bridge that trust deficit, and as a type of an assurance to the Afghan leadership that not only the Pakistani political leadership, the civilian government, but the military is also on the same page, and they want to resolve this issue. So I think it shows Pakistan's seriousness and Pakistan's commitment to the resolution of Afghan issue.
Right, and now the arrangement that we're seeing between President Ashraf Ghani and Dr. Abdullah, who is now the Chairman High Council for National Reconciliation, it appears to be working very well as far as taking forward the peace process and to initiate talks with the Taliban.
I think Dr. Abdullah is, at the moment, is very important because he is heading that, as you mentioned, the National Reconciliation Commission, and which is very important for Afghan. And he will be also responsible for the intra-Afghan talks from the government side, from the Kabul administration side. So already, I think whosoever visit Kabul. So after Ghani, Dr. Abdullah is the second most important person. General Bajwa too have an interaction with Dr. Abdullah. And Dr. Abdullah, I think, personally tweeted his interaction with General Bajwa and talked very high about his meeting with the Pakistani security top man. So it means that you rightly mentioned in your initial statement that the refugees issues, the border issues, etc., were also discussed. But they were side subjects, the type of things. I think the major focus of this visit is to kickstart the second round of Afghan peace process, and that is Afghan talks, when Taliban sat together with the Afghan leadership, and already the government of Dr. Ashraf Ghani, they have constituted a 25-member team. The Taliban have also decided that who will represent them and what things, what issues, and what will be the agenda of Afghan talk. So I think the General Bajwa main focus was to bring the Taliban and the Afghan government, while working together with the American, to bring them on the same table, on the one table, and talk about the future of Afghanistan. The reason is Americans are leaving. They are no more waiting for the Afghan to set together. They are forcing them. Then now it is the time to resolve the issue, and they are not resolving this issue. The American will left and leave them high and dry. So I think
And
Pakistan.
now there's some reports that the Americans might leave as early as July due to their concerns about the pandemic, coronavirus spreading in Afghanistan.
Yeah, you are right. Definitely. One is this corona issues, and the other is the U.S. elections in November this year. So U.S. forces, the U.S. seem to be in a hurry, and Pakistan understands that, God forbid, if there is another descent into chaos in Afghanistan. So the major impact will be on Pakistan. Historically, whenever something bad happens in Afghanistan, so it is the Pakistan which has to bear the brunt. So Pakistan is mindful of that, and Pakistan is also convincing the U.S. Not to be in hurry. Let there is a proper framework, there is a proper administration in Kabul. Until and unless the issue is not resolved, the U.S. shall not left Afghanistan just like the Soviet forces did. You know, when Soviet forces left Afghanistan, after that there was a type of a civil war within Afghanistan, and we saw the government forces, that the Mujahideen fighting with each other, and later on it was the Mujahideen were fighting with each other, and then the Taliban phenomena enters. And I think that second decades of fighting between of the Afghan fighting, it was more lethal, more destructive, cause more displacement in Afghanistan. So Pakistan has that in mind, that God forbid if Americans leave Afghanistan, and there is no proper framework is not worked out. Taliban and Afghan leadership are not set together and find a solution, peaceful solution for the conflict. So God forbid the chaos will be more deadly and more dangerous, and that will cause more damage to Pakistan. So I think Pakistan has more concern. Pakistan civil leadership, Pakistan military leadership, and that's the reason that they are ready to play the ball wherever the Afghan government want, wherever the Taliban, wherever the American, they want Pakistan. If they need Pakistan help, Pakistan is ready to play that. So I think this visit of Dr. General Bajwa, it's part of that Pakistan readiness, Pakistan willingness to convince and to bridge the gap, and to force the warring faction to sit together and find a peaceful solution for the conflict.
Right, and should Pakistan be concerned after U.S. troop withdrawal? There are certain analyses that say that there could be a sort of the local and regional militant trends in South Asia might be reinvigorated and restarted again, not globally due to the fact that there's no more ideology of global jihad left once the U.S. have United States presence has gone. But locally in South Asia, do you believe that there might be an increased threat of militancy after the U.S. leaves?
I think, God forbid, this is how Pakistan, the U.S., and other regional countries, they are sitting together and they are pushing this Afghan dialogue. The reason is not to let Afghanistan fall into that quagmire, which will be, as I said earlier, which will be more lethal, more dangerous, not only for Afghanistan but for Pakistan and the entire region. So we are observing that U.S., China, U.S., Russia, etc., Iran, Pakistan, they are trying to play a very robust, a very proactive role, trying to push the Afghan parties, whether it is the Kabul administration, whether it is the Taliban regime. They are pushing them for the second round to make them set together and resolve the issue themselves. Because Pakistan historical standpoint on Afghan issue is that the process must be Afghan-led and it must be Afghan-owned. Because in the past we have seen that when the process is not led by the Afghan, when the process was not owned by the Afghan, so instead of resolving, instead of instead of solving the issue, we saw more chaos post the new arrangement. So this time,
Absolutely.
Pakistan.
There was more chaos. Thank you so much, Mr. Hassan Khan, a senior analyst who joined us online. We have with us back online Mr. Tariq Pirzada, who's also a foreign affairs expert. Thank you for joining us again, Tariq Pirzada.
Sure.
Right, so we were just discussing all the merits of this peace deal, and after the withdrawal of the US, whether there's an increased sort of threat of militancy in South Asia. Do you believe that there's any such concern? Because there's certain analysts who do fear that happening.
I totally disagree with that. That sounds like a message from New Delhi, not from Islamabad. Number one, look, there are three things that I just heard in this discussion. Number one, this is a golden opportunity for the Republic of Pakistan to get the United States out of Afghanistan and protect and have its western border protected for all the times to come. And this can only happen if we can facilitate the exit of the United States with all the means possible, without caring about any other concern. So before the November election in Washington, if we don't achieve this goal, that is the withdrawal of U.S. forces from Afghanistan before November, and if Mr. Trump loses the election, I can assure you with my 30, 40 years of experience of Washington that the next president, Mr. Biden, he will not be interested in the total withdrawal of U.S. troops from Afghanistan. That's one thing. Number two, this whole theory, cliche about, if we don't resolve every issue, on the table, there'll be chaos in Afghanistan. That is the Afghan way. This is how Mr. Abdullah, who killed, along with other people, 50,000 Afghans in 1996. I hate to say that. I love Afghan people, but we cannot change the way the Afghan politics works. Pakistan's interest lies in the peace in Afghanistan, but at the same time, the withdrawal of U.S. forces must be accomplished. And if the Afghans can't solve their problems, let them solve them their way. But do not let this process be derailed because there is some trouble in Afghanistan. Afghan Taliban have earned the right. Let me make my point clear over here. They have earned their right after 20 years of struggle that they were the rulers of Afghanistan, and in any settlement, they must have a majority stake. If that is not recognized, there will be trouble in Afghanistan. But let me assure you, all this issue of militancy, that's again a message from New Delhi, not from any sane quarter in Pakistan.
Right, so you mentioned New Delhi. Now, Zalmay Khalilzad also visited New Delhi last month, and they've also been included to some extent now in these peace talks because of the fact that you were hearing about spoilers being done from their end, and also now a recent UN report, a monitoring team's report saying that India, Raw's involvement in the TTP and also in ISIS Khorasan, sending their fighters there and all. How big of a threat do you think that would be during this process and afterwards?
You are absolutely right. Your point is well taken. India has been a major threat to the security of Pakistan through the instrumentality of Afghanistan. So we have to do two things. Get the U.S. withdrawal of U.S. forces from Afghanistan in total, number one, and at the same time, make sure that we can, facilitate the issue of the occupied Jammu and Kashmir and help the independence movement that is going on over there. That is the only way to put pressure on India. If we don't put exact pressure on India, they'll continue to meddle in the affairs of Afghanistan and will continue to have trouble on our western borders. So your security lies in resolving two issues: the withdrawal of U.S. forces from Afghanistan and helping the freedom movement in occupied Jammu and Kashmir so that India could stay under pressure. And also, the issue of Jammu and Kashmir could also be one day resolved sooner than later. If you don't do that, India will have a green light to continue meddling in the affairs of Pakistan through Afghanistan.
Right. Thank you so much for your insights, Sayyid Tariq Pirzada, who's a foreign affairs expert. And now another very important topic that we'd like to discuss in our program today is the Higher Education Commission's initiative of the Technology Development Fund, which is an initiative to fund proposals for technology development by ongoing researchers. These are mostly PhD graduates, and the work that they're doing is to enhance and help Pakistan's economy, and also to address existing problems and to find solutions to those. And also the Higher Education Commission also has a lot of initiatives towards bringing about online learning. We're going to be talking about this with the representative of the Higher Education Commission, Dr. Zainul Abidin. He's the DG Research and Development. Thank you, sir, for joining us online.
Thank you, Ji.
Can you please apprise us to begin with about the HEC's efforts to bring about an environment of online learning for students in Pakistan?
Okay, so first of all, thank you very much for inviting HEC and specifically myself actually for giving our views about online learning, especially talking about this technology development program that you have just mentioned actually. So as you are aware that we are actually facing currently this epidemic situation. And one of the things that we realized very early on was that if we really want to sustain our higher education segment, especially related to the courses and the programs that we are offering, we need to go towards the online learning mode actually very early on. And we have actually initiated this initiative early in March, and we have issued directives to the different universities within Pakistan so that they can adopt all the measures, especially related to adopting the technology that is really needed in the universities in order to offer these distance learning courses. Then there are, of course, issues related to the content that is also needed because you must be aware that most of our universities were previously offering courses as in the form of a physical environment actually. So
Right.
since
Can you
the
also tell us a
university
bit about the Technology Development Fund? We are being shown some of the scientific products made under this project. Can you please tell us a bit more about those projects and how they're helping Pakistan?
Yeah. So, I mean, I just touch upon the online learning aspects of the TDF program actually. So, with respect to the online learning, actually, we have already initiated a number of programs which are some of our universities are already offering to the students. But there's still issues related to different technological components and also to the access of the students in terms of the internet availability actually. And in that aspect, we are actually working with some of the telcos as well, so that they can offer some solutions and some more cost-effective solutions for the students community actually, so that they can get connected with their respective universities and they can actually uh, get facility of these online learning modes. So now coming back to the TDF program, so this was actually an initiative that was supported by the Planning Commission back in 2016 actually. And the idea behind this program was to actually uh, develop the ideas that are already conceptualized in the early phases of our research in the academic sector, and then to take those ideas towards the last part, which is the actual transfer of those that technology to the industry. Actually, if you are
Right.
familiar that there are different technology readiness levels that are actually considered when you are about to take the technology to the industry actually. So what we were planning to uh, include in this aspect was that all the projects that are actually between technological readiness level between 8 to 10 actually, they will be actually considered in this part of our program. So and then in order to undertake this program, we have put a mandatory requirement that the projects that we will consider for funding, they will have to have a mandatory interest from the industry as well. And
Okay.
one of the things
Can you
that
just
we
can we just discuss a little bit about the projects that have successfully been funded, such as the National Textile University students making the N95 mask indigenously? How much is the availability of those masks now publicly that have now been developed by the National Textile University?
So, I mean, now you're talking about another initiative actually that we have recently started actually. But with the TDF program, there were actually 200 projects that we funded. We have already funded in the last 3 years of its existence actually. And there are a number of very interesting outcomes of those projects that have already been commercialized actually, and I'll just name a few of them actually, and then I'll go to this initiative that you have mentioned about the National Textile University. So you are aware that there is actually a thing related to this environmental pollution, especially related to the tanning industry that exists in Sialkot region actually. And one of the initiatives that we have funded in the TDF program was specifically making use of the raw materials from that industry actually, and to overcome the uh, environmental pollution related aspects of those raw output that has been produced by that industry. So
That would be the
that's
chemicals produced by the tanning industry.
exactly.
Right.
So they have actually come up with a very innovative idea by which they can actually process some of the waste material that has been produced by that industry, and it can be reused within the same industry as well.
Okay,
So this is one
because
of the
these are byproducts of the industry that actually pollute water resources, as you were saying earlier, and then they cause poisoning to the people, the locals who drink that water, or any agricultural use it's used for. It contaminates everything. It contaminates that crop, and it also contaminates the drinking water. So this is a solution to that students have come up with.
Exactly. Then coming back to this initiative that you have just mentioned about the National Textile University. So in actually early March, we have also initiated another program which we named it as a Rapid Research and Innovation Initiative. And the idea there was that we should actually use the research that is available, or the research capacity that is available in our universities actually, in order to develop innovative ideas that could really help in us in addressing this COVID-related situation actually. So we launched that program by mid of March, and there were more than 500 applications that we actually received as part of that program actually. And I mean, it covers a number of areas actually, starting from the personal protective equipments, which N95 is an important component of that actually. But it also has another areas related to the diagnostic equipment, because you must be aware that there is a shortage of diagnostic equipment within Pakistan as well actually. And of
Right.
course, one of the things that is
Right, sorry, please continue. And just as a follow up, I'd like to know if these are available locally as well for the public.
yes. So, and then the other thing that we have also included in that program was the modeling part actually, because right now we what we are lacking in Pakistan is also a very I mean more sophisticated system that can actually gather data from the very remote parts of the country and present it to the policymakers in a way that will be helpful for them in making their decisions actually. So that is another very complex system that we have already got some interest actually, and right now we are in the phase of actually finalizing those grants, and they will be soon available to our researchers. All of
Right.
these ideas are right now in, I would say, they are in the development phase, so they are not directly available to the end users. But I would just say that some of these are really very promising solutions that will help us in addressing not only the COVID-related situations, but some other related problems that are existing to our healthcare system as well.
Right, absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing all this information with us, Dr. Zainul Abidin, the DG Research and Development in the Higher Education Commission. We wish them and their students the best of luck in developing these technology solutions to Pakistan's issues, which is mainly right now the COVID-19 situation. Now, moving on to the situation with the protests for the killing of George Floyd by a United States police officer. We're going to be talking to a senior analyst about this situation, Mr. Niaz Murtaza. Thank you, sir, for joining us on our program.
My pleasure.
Yesterday, we saw the funeral take place in Houston of George Floyd, where he grew up, and a very touching eulogy by his brother Rodney, and where he said that he's going to change the world. And we're actually seeing that the result of George Floyd's death is sparking so much outrage all over the world. It's not just limited to all 50 states in the United States, but also in other countries, Australia, the United Kingdom. So many reactions we're seeing, and then also a bit of tangible change can be seen. Your comments on this, please.
Well, yeah, I mean, these kinds of incidents have happened in the past too, where, police brutality led to the death of, a black man. But, the reaction this time has been particularly severe, and particularly severe keeping in mind, the COVID-19 related restrictions and fears that are pretty much in place. Given all that, hundreds of thousands of people have come out on the streets to, protest against this. And these things happened under Obama too, and there used to be some reaction. But I think what is feeding into this reaction so much this time is, the fact of, the Trump administration's policies and his own behavior, where, he keeps belittling black people, people of other minority groups, and so on. And then, the policies have become so hostile towards minorities and all vulnerable groups. So I think that's all coming together to, bring all this reaction out on the streets. Now, in terms
Right,
of, what
we've
yeah,
also, we're seeing in Washington D.C. I need to just bring this in before we come to the before our time finishes, that the Washington D.C. Council has brought about an emergency bill to reform policing in the cities, and this is going to ban using chemicals like tear gas and pepper spray on protesters, less lethal projectiles like rubber bullets and stun grenades, and making it unlawful for police to use chokeholds. And now 11 cities are now bringing about the similar ban. 11 cities in the United States to ban chokeholds by the police. And these developments are actually bringing about something tangible.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to move to. What is going to be the impact? Now, of course, it's a opportunity moment, and it really depends on how, to what extent the political parties take it up, and to what extent the protesters are able to keep up the pressure in the future, because there's a limit to how long they can stay on the streets. But after they're gone from the streets, they have to put up pressure through social media and other channels on their representatives that there is a dire need to change. Otherwise, you do see these kind of, incidents happening, and there is some, protest for a little while, but then no meaningful change comes in. Then the other thing is that, it's coming at a very critical time in that, the U.S. elections are going to be taking place in about 6 months. So, there's also a need to, channel that energy towards, bringing about change through the ballot box in November, so that you have representatives who are more attuned to the needs of vulnerable groups, to minority groups, because what you've seen in the U.S. in the past, few years, that it's moving more and more towards the right, and this populism based on, white nationalism, it's becoming more and more ugly.
Absolutely. Thank you for your insights, Mr. Niaz Murtaza, senior analyst. We're running out of time, but finally we want to show you this video which shows a skateboarder. He's a young child who can prove that persistent efforts will lead to success. Please have a look at this video. It's very inspiring. So we can see this young child is repeatedly going down these stairs on his skateboard. He falls a couple of times, and then eventually he ends up on his own feet. So this is very inspiring, a very inspiring video of this adorable little boy learning how to skateboard down the stairs, who initially falls down and after repeated efforts manages to stay on his feet. So it's a lesson for all of us that if we keep trying and practicing, we can really accomplish anything. That brings us to the end of the program today. That's all for Newsroom. Thank you for watching us, and we'll see you next time.